My guest today is Bryan Bishop. He is affectionately known as Bald Bryan to millions of his fans around the world. For 16 years, he was Adam Carolla's sidekick on the Adam Carolla Show until he left to launch the Bryan and Gina Show, the official podcast of the Los Angeles Magazine in 2023. Let's put Bryan's career in sort of a radio era podcast context. Adam Carolla took over for Howard Stern. If you remember, back in January 3rd on 2006, Howard moved to satellite radio, Sirius XM. 2 years later, in February 2009, the first episode of the Adam Carolla Show podcast went online live broadcast from Adam's home studio. Now, 2 years later, in May in 2011, the Adam Carolla Show was recognized by the Guinness World Records as being the most downloaded podcast, having received 59,574,843 downloads. Wow. Today, the podcast receives more than 30 million downloads a month. That's a lot of ears. And I was one of those listeners when Bryan was there. Let me explain a little bit how Bryan influenced my life. I was living in Santa Monica and Santa Barbara. I worked at the Enterprise Fish Company down on Main Street in Santa Monica, and I traveled between our restaurant locations there in Santa Monica and Santa Barbara. I also oversaw a little Japanese curry restaurant called Huri Curry of Tokyo. There was one in Pasadena and there was one in West LA. So all week long, I'm driving between these restaurants and these stores. I would spend literally whole days in my car. And Bryan, Adam, and Gina Grad were often my only company. Over the years, they became my friends. They got me through endless hours on the 405 PCH or the 110 freeway. And you develop a special relationship with a radio or a podcast host that is unlike any other that I can think of. It's deeply personal. There is no equally unique bond offered in any other medium that I can think of. And I admit that while I was listening those years, I didn't know much about Bryan's personal life before I read his New York Times best-selling memoir, Shrinkage, Manhood, Marriage, and the Tumor That Tried to Kill Me. I only knew that Bryan was a co-host on one of my favorite shows, and whenever I listened to him, I always learned something. I look forward to his jokes, unflattering impressions of his station manager, Jack Silver, and his ability to conjure up any sound effect challenge that Adam tossed his way. Most importantly, Bryan made me feel better, no matter how bad my day was. Getting in the car and turning on the radio became the best part of any day. And I didn't know that while I was laughing and while I was tuning in each day, Bryan was fighting for his life. See, Bryan discovered that he had brain cancer, and he was told by an insensitive doctor that he only had 6 months to live. He couldn't register this bad news at first. How could this happen? He was in the best place he had ever been in his life. He was on a successful radio show. He had recently met the love of his life, and they were getting married in 2 months. And now, at the age of 30, he was dying. Bryan and I have never met face to face, and we've never spoken a word to each other until today. And Bryan, I don't want to make you uncomfortable, but I believe that we should
Too
tell
late.
others that we should tell others what they've meant to us when we have that opportunity. So, Bryan, I just want to tell you right now, you have meant a lot to me. Welcome to the Jeremiah Show.
I'm sorry, my audio cut out for a second. You repeat that whole part? I missed most of that.
Start over.
Yeah, just start from take it from the top.
I'll just take it from the
I heard
bottom, the most
welcome.
important part. You have meant a lot to me. I really want to thank you for that. I never
Well,
thought I'd have the opportunity face to face to tell you what you meant to me, but you really have.
thank you, first of all. And it's You're absolutely, that's a very eloquent intro. Very well done. I can't tell you the number of people over the years who have, when I've met them, have said some version of, "Yeah, I feel like I know you, like I
Hmm.
know all about your life." And it's funny because even to this day, not being on the show anymore, but having been on for 16 years, people will see us out in West LA or Santa Monica or wherever we are, and oftentimes other places in the world. And like I recognize once in a while, someone will say something very nice, like, "Oh, loved you on the show. I really enjoyed you, when we listened to your guys' episodes." And if I'm with my daughter, who's now 8, about to turn 9, in a matter of weeks,
Tessa.
yeah, they're like, "And you must be Tessa." And they kind of blows her mind that there's strangers coming up to her and like, "Daddy, how does he know who I am?" I'm like, "Tessa, a lot of people know who you are."
That's great. Yeah,
And now
Tessa,
she
love
not
that.
now she's leaning into it. Now she knows that Daddy's making a documentary, a movie, as far as she cares. And she's like, "Daddy, can you put up a billboard with my face on it by my school when your movie comes out?" I'm like, we'll ask, we'll see."
We'll, we'll see if they'll put through that. I like that. Put up a billboard of me.
Yeah, she wants to flex on all of her classmates.
Good for her. So San Mateo, you grew up with your brother Adam. Your family were pretty tight, and I like this. You were the inside kid, and your brother Adam was the outside kid.
Yep.
Your Serbian grandmother taught you swear words in her language.
She was Syrian, but yeah, she
Oh,
did.
Syrian. Sorry, not
She taught
Serbian.
me plenty of curse words. Well, she wouldn't. Sorry, she never taught me any curse words. She used a lot of curse words that I picked up on.
So you learn that you learn
Yeah,
from them. I love that she had, I'm just kind of setting this up here. She had a video collection that she would
yeah.
record, rent videos, record them, and then mark them and star them and review
Yeah,
them.
yeah. She had a video library back in the VHS days. She had 2 VHS players. I mean, she was serious for an
Serious.
amateur, and she would have this. And she had like hard catalog for her videos, so it was like a little video store. Granted, most of the movies were classics from the 1940s and 50s. That said, it really helped foster a love of movies for me that continues
Yeah.
to this day. So that's probably where it began.
Where is that collection now?
Oh God, I'm sure it's in a landfill somewhere. They were
Uh,
all, they were all Costco VHS tapes that she
uh,
had taped movies off of TV,
should buy
or
in bulk.
sometimes from other tapes. These were not high quality productions. It's best lives in our memories.
Yeah, VCR, and who's got a VCR anymore? But
Exactly.
that collection sounds pretty sweet. Uh, like you said, so that kind of gave you this exposure to films, lots of films, and viewing them with her. You co-host a film podcast called The Film Vault with Anderson, and
Correct.
you've also got a Substack. I just want everybody to know this because I signed up Substack newsletter called Baldywood,
Yeah.
dedicated to the movies.
Yeah, go to it's you can shortcut right to it at baldywood.com. Not Bollywood. It's not focused on Indian films. It's Baldywood, like I'm Baldy. But yeah, it's a weekly newsletter. I think the coolest thing about it is that I give three every week. I do three under the radar streaming picks, movies you
Yeah,
may have missed, movies you might not have heard of. These are, I wouldn't call them obscure. I'm trying not to alienate people, but movies that went under the radar, underappreciated movies. I'm not going to recommend, Goodfellas and Jaws. Like I'm
right.
actually looking, at movies that maybe you've only vaguely heard of, or movies that slipped past the public consciousness.
So that's baldywood.com, Baldy Wood,
Yep.
Wood. And that's
Newsletter's
I'm all
free.
yeah, I'm always looking for because you just feel like you've seen everything. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to have found that.
My
Um,
mission is to exactly address those people who are like, "God, I've seen everything. I don't want to spend 45 minutes scrolling for something to stream. Like I want to go to someone I trust, hopefully me, and see, oh, Brian recommended this horror movie or this documentary or this comedy or this family film or whatever, so that there's a nice variety out
Mhm.
there of movies that maybe are new to you.
Yeah, know how many, no matter how much I say, I've seen everything. I've seen that. I've seen that. But then you look through, somebody gives you a list like you do, and you're like, I haven't seen that. And it sounds
Yeah.
like it's pretty good. There's a good review from Brian.
Yeah,
So,
that's the ultimate, like new to you. If you've not seen it, doesn't matter if it's 10, 20 years old, it's new to
yeah,
you.
yeah. And I like some of those old ones when they're shot on real film.
Oh
So
yeah.
here's my critical question out of about your grandmother. Can you give us some of those swear words?
Oh God, wasn't ready for this. She would say, so the sad thing is I don't exactly know I know. So she would say hara or halb, which I think meant either shit or shit on a stick. She would say things like makhta, which I'm not sure what that is, but I had Lebanese friends in college who delighted when I would repeat these words because I didn't know what I was saying, but he thought they were hilarious. So things of that nature.
I just love the stories about your families and kind of getting to know where your upbringing. And you also had, I think it was on your father's side, if I've got that right, your grandfather, Babe, who taught you the value of education
That
and
was my
how
mom's
it can,
dad.
your mom's dad, how it can lead to
Yeah,
more money for you.
he was the best. Babe was, yeah, a firefighter. He's a fire captain, actually. And he would write in every one of my cards, birthday cards, graduation cards, whatever occasion there was. He'd put in $5 or whatever, the going rate was at the time. And he'd be like, remember, education equals money. Or education equals dollar signs. And I was like, all right, Grandpa, that's very wise words. That's so fun. I was just thinking about it last night, not as it pertains to that, but as it pertains to, so his wife, my grandma, had a stroke when I was probably sixth grade or something, like when I was youngish. And so I only knew her for the majority of my life, my adult life, as like, grandma who had a stroke and she slurred her words really badly. It was hard to understand, couldn't get around very easily. And just, what old people do when they have a stroke like that. And she ended up having a series of strokes. My grandpa, the old firefighter, cared for her. He was a caretaker for the rest of her life. They lived in their house until they died effectively. Not at the same time, but at different times. And he would say to her when she was, down and out, or she was feeling bad about herself, or she was bemoaning her lot in life, he would say, "Look at us. We got it better than 90% of the people in this world." And it was right. I
Right.
mean, even though it's all about how you choose to look at it, right? Like
Yeah.
if you take the totality of the people in the world, these two retired folks sitting on their deck or their balcony or whatever in the backyard, like that's pretty great.
Yeah, that's a good lesson.
So,
Uh, tell the story if you wouldn't mind about Jeopardy
oh
and your,
yeah.
and
So
which, how you took your
that's
grandfather for some
yeah.
cash.
No, that was money well spent on his part. So from my one grandma, my dad's mom, I was telling you about, fostered that love of movies. Another passion of my life, I love trivia. I've always been really into it. I thought it was great. And my grandpa on my mom's side, this firefighter babe, helped foster my love of trivia and knowledge and education. I would spend the weekend at their house, right? Because my parents would go
Mhm.
away or something. And old people love watching Jeopardy and they love watching Wheel of Fortune. And so my grandpa would say to me, all right, we're going to watch Jeopardy. Every question you get right before the other person gets it right, the contestant, will give you a quarter. And then for double Jeopardy, we give you 50 cents for every question you get right. And then for if you got final Jeopardy, you got $1. And the thing is, Jeopardy was syndicated at that point, so it ran a few times during the day. So I made sure that we watched every airing, and I was pretty smart for a middle schooler or whatever I was at the time. So I think I'd walk away a couple of weekends with over $20. We're from
You
quarters,
cleaned
but
up. Yeah, I thought in the book it said took $40.
that might have been that sounds about right.
Yeah,
There was
it was
probably a
good
time when I
money.
did an extended a weekend or something.
So that served you well. You went on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I was watching those this morning, the videos online. Was it 100K you won, or did you win the full million?
Oh God, I wish. No, it was 100K.
100K,
I
yeah.
walked away at the $250,000 question. And so I'd already won 100, so that's where I walked away.
Well, did you learn that lesson from your wife, who one time liked to walk away when
No,
she was ahead?
we were engaged at that point. That was like one of the storylines on the show. They were like, "Oh, this guy
Right.
is getting ready for his wedding," blah blah blah. So I think I remember in the run up to being on the show, I was thinking to myself, all right, if I think the remember like if you got to certain levels, you couldn't fall below that level.
Yeah.
So I was like, I remember thinking like if I get to 16,000, that's the minimum I'd like to walk away with. If I get to 25,000, I'll be satisfied. 50, I'll be happy, and anything after that is just amazing.
Yeah. That's a pretty good take.
Yeah.
Do you go on those shows anymore, or do you apply to go on
I
any of
haven't
those shows?
applied for a game show. I probably should. I haven't
Yeah.
applied for a game show since then.
Sounds like you're great at it.
Yeah, I should. That's funny. You know what? All you game show producers out there, hit me up and I'll
Okay.
come on your game show.
Well, when I was reading your book, I kept kind of going, "Whoa, we have a lot of similarities. So, there's some parallel life going on there." Like in high school, I think you had a 1.67. I don't want to take any bit away from you,
That
but you
might
had
have
a
been
pretty.
middle school, but yeah, I didn't do well.
I had in high school a 1.6, and by the time I got to graduation, and it wasn't enough to graduate, so I had to go to summer school but I
Oh
got my
God.
diploma and walked. But it was bad. My teachers never had anything nice to say about me. I was always wild and disruptive and in trouble. And I know that happened to you as well. I was in at USC in 96, and I think you were in at USC in
That's what
96.
I started. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So did I. We both love filmmaking, and then there's of course, the radio podcast thing. But uh, when I read the chapter about your realization, this is after school, that
Mhm.
you may have ADHD, and the discovery for you, I think it was at Channel One when you were there. You just said, "Wow, that's me. That explains my struggles, my forgetfulness, concentration,
Yeah.
grades, and all that." And when we were in school, there really wasn't much talk about HDAD, was there? It wasn't really
No,
a
no.
diagnosis.
It's funny. I remember, yeah, I remember writing about that. And I remember the moment where I was like, oh, that really adds up and that makes a lot of sense. And that's probably what I was suffering from at the time. And of course, you and I being about the same age, there wasn't, like you said, a lot of, I don't even know when ADHD or what ADD would have been the first
Hmm.
iteration.
Right,
I don't even
right.
know when it was, discovered or entered into the sort of common lexicon, but I can tell you when that in our day it wasn't really discussed or much of a thing. So here I was, people just thought I was lazy and forgetting things and being disruptive, like you said, and learning out
Losing
in
your
class.
glasses.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a real revelation. And initially I was frustrated, maybe with the, people around, like educators, administrators, even my parents to an extent, where I was like, man, how frustrating to have been quite obviously suffering from this thing, but no one thought to raise that as a possibility.
Right.
But then I've since, in my mind, forgiven them, especially my parents, where it's like, as I've learned having a child, it's like, hey man, we're all doing the best we can.
Yeah.
No one's fostering any ill will, not pursuing an angle because it doesn't suit them. It's like, no, we're all doing the best we can with the tools we have, and that's the best that anyone could have done back then.
Yeah, that's a good outlook. Um, the teachers were cruel to you, though. They said some pretty mean things and just not understanding, not out of
Well, keep
ill
in mind
will.
that, sorry to interrupt you, but yeah, but I mean, a lot of teachers back in the 80s, let's say, were holdovers from World War II era or the Cold War. Like these are people who've been around for 30 years and you had enough shit from kids. They didn't want to take, the lip from some, balding 12-year-old named Brian. And they were like, ah, yeah, let's go sit in the corner or something, or go sit in the
Yeah.
hallway. They weren't there to apply the newest medical diagnoses to their kids. They wanted to collect their pension and get on with their lives.
Yeah. I can't imagine having 30 kids that you've got to reach, every day. But do you think that it had an effect on how you thought about yourself? Maybe definitely at that time, I'm sure you were disappointed and like, why can't I remember where I put my glasses?
Yeah,
That's
I
gotta
was,
be
I was,
frustrating. But do you think it changed the way you viewed your self-worth and what you could offer the world past that?
That's
It was just,
interesting. I can say that in two parts. One, yeah, at the time, it definitely affected how I looked at myself and how my self-worth. It was like, why? I recognized that I was smart as a kid, but I was like, why can't I remember to do my homework? Why am I losing my
Mhm.
classes? Like, wouldn't it be so easy? Like my parents would be like, why did you not turn in your project or whatever? And I'd be like, as honestly as I could, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you. I wish I did. I
Yeah,
wish I could say it was boring, and so I decided to do something else. But
you were
that,
doing the best you could.
yeah, I was there. So that was definitely something I viewed as a shortcoming in myself at the time. But later, when I guess kind of realized, oh, there is a real deficiency there that I can point to, but also work to overcome, like in my adult life.
Mhm.
Also, I think I talked about it in the book where this is right around the time when did you get to the part where I did the personality survey amongst my friends to I sent out there's a website where you would send out an anonymous survey to your
Yeah.
friends
Yeah,
and
I
they
read that.
would pick out of like, out of whatever it was, 25 words, negative words to describe someone, selfish or cruel or whatever. They would pick out the ones that applied to you and you'd anonymously get them back and they would tell you basically what you had to improve upon. And that was a big part of my life at that point. I was like, self-improvement, right? Like I wanted to see what people thought of my shortcomings, and I think through those things I was able to at least be conscious, if not address what people saw were the maybe minor flaws in my character.
Yeah. Sounds like a terrible exercise.
A lot of people were like, I could
Like
never
kick
do
me when
that.
I'm already
Yeah,
down.
yeah, I could never do that. But I was like, hey, it's gonna benefit me and you. So yeah,
Yeah, that says a
you
lot
got a
about
better
your
you got a
mindset.
better friend out of it.
Yeah, that says a lot about you. And you were also 228 pounds at one point there when you were working, and then you lost the weight, you got in shape. What inspired that change in you?
That's a great, honestly, I wish I could say something profound. I just got tired of being overweight. Like
Yeah.
just I was young and I think maybe I just broken up with my first girlfriend and I kind of looked in the mirror literally. I was like, this is not gonna work. So just stopped drinking soda, stopped eating fast food, started exercising and the rest is history.
Around that time, you began to find pretty good success in the entertainment business, although maybe you weren't paid as well as you would have liked to have been. But you were putting in the time and you were putting in the work, and people started to notice you. One of those people was Adam Carolla. I'm
Sure.
curious about that first meeting with him. What was that like? You
So
remember?
underwhelming, as you can imagine, because I got hired to be like the call screener at K-Rock, which is the radio show, the radio station out here in Los Angeles that carried Loveline. And after doing call screening for about a year and a half, whatever it was, at K-Rock, I got the opportunity to screen the calls for Loveline, which was a call-in radio show hosted by Adam Carolla and Dr. Drew. And so I was hired by the producer. I never met Adam until I showed up, and it was a huge thrill for me. I was a big fan of the Man Show, big fan of Loveline, K Rock, all that stuff. So getting to meet Adam was awesome. But at that point, he was just, it was 10 o'clock at night when Loveline recorded, and he was just tired from like, shooting a TV show all day. And he was like, how you doing? Nice to meet you, that kind of thing. And I was like, all right, cool. So I just got to hang around and make those guys coffee and, screen the calls. It
Now,
was,
didn't he
it's,
remember you though from from was it from K Rock or from somewhere that he worked? Didn't he call for you and
So
remember you
that was one step later. That
later?
was
Okay.
after I'd worked for the radio show, and Adam went off to um, Adam was got, I think, I heard it was the same time. It was the same time as Loveline. He was doing a TV show called Too Late with Adam Carolla. And I got a call one day out of the blue from one of the producers over there. They were apparently having trouble with the call-in segment, with the call screening. And they were like, hey, Adam specifically mentioned you. He said you did a really good job at this when you were at Loveline. So do you want to come over and do this? And that was a real make or break moment for me looking
Yeah.
back, because I had a full-time job with benefits. It was secure as far as I knew. But then here was this opportunity that paid a lot more money, and got to be a TV producer, a segment producer for the show. Granted, it was only for about 3 or 4 months, but I was like, this is too good an opportunity to pass up. And so I took that job. Ironically enough, I think the job that I had left, the full-time job at Channel One News, folded 6 months later. So it really was good timing on my part. But I followed Adams to the TV show, did that for about 3 or 4 months, and it was a nice run. It was, wrap it up and see you maybe, see you never. But then it was just announced I believe at the end of '05, right when that show was wrapping up, that Adam would be taken over for Howard Stern in the morning on 97.1. It's syndicated on many CBS stations. And so I went up to Adam one day after on the show, and I was like, hey man, if there's room for me over there at the station, the new show, let me know. And he basically, one thing led to another. He talked to the producer, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, yeah, I need a call screener. I'm like, oh boy, that's a bit of a step backwards, but it was a cool opportunity, man. I loved Howard Stern. I loved Carolla, and I thought this is so fun. I'll do it for a few months and see where it takes me.
Sounds like you were a risk taker. You weren't afraid to jump and leap when you saw an opportunity, make it yours.
Yeah, I
You
was.
love,
I was. So I was. I didn't have a lot to lose. I was like
yeah.
25, and then B. I've always been good at identifying a sort of calculated risk, where it's like, okay, here's the downside, but here's the upside. Like, right here's the potential, payoff, and at that point, it was worth the risk.
You love film. That's established, well established. You love film and you love writing. But you kind of went into radio. You ended up in radio and podcasting, which was sort of new. You were in the very beginning of the podcast craze. Um, what's your love for radio? Do you love radio? What do you think of it? Is it a
Yeah,
medium?
yeah.
Yeah.
Love radio. So from the early days of my childhood, I would listen to baseball games on the radio I think I listened to a game every night there was a game, and I was in the Bay Area, so I would listen to A's or Giants. I was a big A's fan at the time, and so I'd listen to just game after game. Honestly, if between TV and radio, I probably consumed 160 games a year. It was
Wow.
rare that I'd miss a game. Maybe if I had like a little league practice or something. I loved baseball, obviously, and so loved radio. Loved the sort of art of describing what you're seeing. And then as I got older into high school, loved Howard Stern. Listened to him every morning,
Yeah.
and then discovered Loveline not too long after that, because I believe it was syndicated on my station that carried Howard Stern in the Bay Area right around that time. And then it was on MTV. So it was very easy to sort of make that transition. And between those three shows, I mean, baseball, Howard Stern, and Loveline, that was really a very full picture of radio in my
Mhm.
upbringing.
But you also found that there was a good radio was a good fit for you with your ADHD, right? That and you listed some of the reasons why you found success in it, why you enjoyed it.
Yeah, yeah, as soon as I got the opportunity to be on the air on the Adam Carolla Show, which was about 5 months into the show, once I learned to, at that point, I had learned and I was continuing to learn to sort of harness those ADHD curses into powers, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like the instinct to blurt out something or interrupt was a bad instinct, but it also is good in radio when you're following the conversation and you have something to drop in, whether it's verbal or whether it's a drop. You just got to pick your spot. So if I could master that skill, that sort of picking your spot, really, really finding the right moment. I mean, that's, you can't really teach that. It's just, and I will say that, Anderson on Loveline was a huge influence before I ever met him because he would do just perfect drops at the perfect moment. And I really had that baked into my sort of radio metronome, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Did you ever ask Adam, personally? He said a lot of great things about you through the years, but did you ever ask him, why did you choose me particularly? Why did you, what did you see in me? What
Now,
did
do,
you?
do, you- do, do you mean to come along and screen calls
Yeah,
or to be on the
I
air?
mean, you guys worked together for 16 years also, so there was a relationship, a great relationship there. I'm wondering if you ever said, why did you pick me? Why did you want me?
That conversation never took place,
No.
but I can say pretty confidently, at least as it pertains to dragging me along to be the call
Mhm.
screener and this and that. I think Adam, I know, having known him so long, Adam appreciates someone who has a good work ethic and someone who is dependable, reliable, and sort of punches the clock. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
to speak, like, oh, you
right.
can depend on this person to show up on time, do the work, show up early if needed, whatever it is. I was that guy. I like to think I still am, but I was especially that guy in my 20s where I'd show up early, I'd do the work. I didn't have to be asked twice to do something. I kind of picked up on things pretty quickly, at least in terms of the radio call screening world. So I think I've never heard Adam say it, but I can confidently surmise that he saw a good work ethic in me, or at least a dependability and a reliability. And then on top of that, when it came time to when he basically allowed me to be the wacky sound effects guy on his show, it's a big responsibility. I think he actually saw some ability there, to
Yeah.
actually press the buttons at the right time and not step on things and pick your spots. So hopefully it's a combination of work ethic and talent. One beginning the other.
Yeah. Your book, Shrinkage, the big picture may for the story may be about your mortality and brain tumor, brain cancer, Bryan, but I think it's more than that. I think it's really a love story and a love letter to your wife, Christie. Your love for each other brought tears to my eyes, honestly. And I wouldn't want to admit that on radio normally, but I have to tell you that it affected me emotionally.
Sure.
The conversations, the way that you loved each other and how she loved you through this really hard time that
Yeah.
you went through. Um, it's been a long time since a book did anything like that, or a movie, or anything
Oh,
moved
thanks,
me to
man.
that level.
I gotta say, I'll interrupt you and say you're not the first person to make that observation. Like, I think it was maybe even my editor or someone early on, like, oh, this book's really a love letter to Christie. I'm like, yeah, yeah, it's really what it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and it's a love like what you guys have is rare, I think, and so you really, you know, kind of turn each page, and I really wanted to see, where it went, and just see that relationship um, build and come alive in the book, and it really does. It's a beautiful love story,
Oh, thank
And
you.
for men or women, it's worth the read for that reason alone. Um, Congratulations also on your recent 16th wedding anniversary.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, flies by now that we have an almost 9-year-old. But thank you. And by the way, I obviously this is a promotion of nothing that no one can enjoy right now. But I told you off the air that we just completed our documentary called Growth that's been submitted to Sundance and submitted to South by Southwest. It's going to be submitted to a bunch of film festivals. Fingers crossed. But the reason I bring it up is because I think when people get a chance to see it, it'll be, first of all, I think the sensibility of the book, it's not a filmed version of the book. It's very different. That said, I think the sensibilities, both comedic and poignancy, hopefully, I think you'll be able to recognize those in the movie. And even more of it's a lot about me and about cancer survivors, of course, but there is a lot in there about Christie.
Mm.
So enjoy that when
Uh,
it comes out.
yeah, it's a beautiful love letter to your relationship, and just
Thanks.
a nice blueprint to. It's nice to see. It's nice to kind of be I don't know, a fly on the wall and watch it unfold.
Thanks.
You
Hopefully you
mentioned
have me back on when the movie comes out. We'll talk
for
about it.
sure, yeah, for sure. If you'll come on, you're welcome on anytime, my friend.
Great.
You mentioned two things that you immediately loved about Christy. One was her good family,
Yep. Yep.
and the second was her politeness to servers. And
Yes, that's true.
I love that because I grew up in the hospitality business most of my life,
Oh,
and
that's right.
yeah, and it just feels like I just love somebody that understands that the politeness to servers. Tell me about Christy a little bit more. Tell me about
Well,
some of the things
it's
that.
funny because though I guess, when you're a young man in your 20s, or a woman, I suppose, you have, your criteria for someone you date.
Right.
And maybe it's very specific, maybe it's very general, maybe it's as simple as like, oh, I want, if it's a woman or a guy, I want a guy that I date to be taller than me. That could be on your list. For me, my two sort of non-negotiables has to have a good family. And what I mean by that is a supportive, loving, intact, or God forbid if there's divorce in there, there's an amicable situation. I didn't want some family drama. That was just a bad sign. It's something I didn't want to deal with. And then yeah, someone being polite to people in the service industry, whether it's, service is the most obvious example, the most common one you're going to encounter from day to day, but people at a hotel or a theme park or whatever, if how you treat those people that are waiting on you, so to speak, says a lot about you, I think.
Yeah, it does. You're right. I mean, that is a really great measurement. And for a person, Christy, we're talking about, she's so unforgettable in your life. How did
Sorry,
you
but
not remember meeting her twice?
yeah, so
You
that's
had
funny.
no recollection.
The question was, tell me about her. Yes, we met. You know what that I think is. So yes, like you're alluding to, Christy and I met at a wedding, only to realize we'd actually met before, about a year and a half before. And I chalk the fact that I couldn't remember at least, and she couldn't remember. I chalk my forgetfulness up to being such a great boyfriend because I had a girlfriend
You
at
weren't
the
looking
time.
anywhere else.
Yeah,
That's
I
a good
wasn't like,
one.
oh, look at this beautiful woman. I was
That's a
like, oh, this is a
good
friend of a
comeback.
friend. So in one eye, out the other, as it were.
That's
But
great comeback. She
uh,
can't
she
argue with that.
she's incredibly kind and funny, and I didn't know this at the time, of course, but such a nurturing person, mother to our daughter, mother to our dog, mother to, caretaker to me, which obviously I had no way of doing any of this when we started dating. But I think I inherently recognize these qualities in someone that actually see them in practice. So to see them down the road is so incredibly gratifying.
Yeah, I bet, huh? You get to spend those years and see it
I'm glad I'm
unfold.
here for it.
You're adding layers of life and love and experience. I
Yeah,
did love
I'm
that
glad I got to see it.
you said she's a great mother. There's a footnote in the book I'm holding here, Shrinkage by Bryan Bishop. Uh, there's a footnote that goes on and on about her, and then it's very, very small. I can hardly see it these days. So I'm like, I'm really getting it close to my eyes, to my glasses, and it says, obviously that she's going to make a great mother. That was the footnote.
Oh,
Well,
funny.
yeah. I also loved when you guys met each other again for the second time, but not remembering at a party. She said, you said, I work on the Adam Carolla show. And she says, I know somebody who works on the Adam Carolla show. And you kept going through everybody's names and she, no,
Yeah,
no, no. And finally she turns to her friend. She says, who do I know from the Adam Carolla show? And she said, you know, Brian,
that's right.
because
Because
you'd already met.
It was three guys named Mike, and it was me. So I'm like, well, it's either me, Mike, or Adam.
So this is so tragic. One of the tear-jerking moments after you propose. Um, I don't know, something about that moment and that photo in the book got me, got me like I was rooting for you the whole way. She says yes, she hides under the sheets, but then she comes out and says yes. And then 2 months later, or 2 months before your wedding, you begin feeling sick. And what was your original diagnosis from the doctor who you called Dr. Doom?
So I it was 2 months before my wedding when I was diagnosed. I was feeling sick for a few months before that, and the first doctor I saw was pretty confident that I had MS, multiple sclerosis, and so that's what we were living with for a few weeks. But then obviously we got the MRI results, and it was a pretty serious brain tumor, and that changed things significantly.
So, and at this point, you had everything that you wanted, and you discovered
Yeah.
that something you didn't want. Brain cancer at 30 years old. Were you angry, Brian? Do you remember that moment that you received the diagnosis? You describe it a little bit, but were you mad? Did anything matter anymore? Or did you turn and say, I know you said that's not going to be me. I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
But you fought, right? You didn't, were you angry at the same time? Or what were those
That's
feelings like?
interesting. I feel like maybe I was, but I was more like frustrated or pissed, or I was like you said, man, everything is going my way. I got this amazing woman who I'm engaged to, got a really cool job, and now it's all getting sort of snatched away, and that was frustrating at the least. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Okay, there's a story. We're almost out of
Nope.
time here,
We
but
got a lot more to talk about.
we got so much to talk about. But I actually, I want to leave it where everybody goes and picks up this book because you've got to read the rest. You've got to read this for your story for yourself. It's got a lot of humor, but it's also very sweet. Um, it's it's there's a peek behind the entertainment industry. Let you feel like you're the only one that's there that gets to read this stuff, and then you've got this beautiful love affair when Bryan and Christie meet and their love affair through the last 16 years. Um, you've also got this tragedy that they've got to overcome and face together. It's a really, really excellent book. It's called Shrinkage by Bryan Bishop. And I'm going to give out the information one more time here. Last story, I love this, Brian. I don't want you to give too much away, but
Please.
you need to find your friend. I think it's your best friend told you, you need to find the rocks. Can you explain?
Yeah. Yeah. So the idea being, and it's funny because I brought this story up to him. He's like, I don't remember that. I'm like, well, you told me this. And he's like, dude, the story was like, man, you're right after I was diagnosed. He's like, man, it's like you're at the bottom of a pit, right? You're at the bottom of a well, and like you can't get out. But like you got to find those pebbles. Like you're looking for rocks, but just look for a little something, grab onto, something to step onto, and then look for
Mhm.
the next pebble, right? Like it doesn't have to be a huge rock, doesn't have to be a ladder. Just look for the little things to cling on to and to climb on and step on. Next thing you know, you're halfway out of that well and you just keep going. And the pebbles can be your way out.
You need to find the rocks. It's a great lesson. Brian, how do you feel now?
Pretty good, actually. My tumor, no spoilers. My tumor started to grow again a couple years ago, right during COVID, actually, and that was a really tough time for me. I've really made a great comeback since then, and I'm
Mhm.
on a new medication that just got approved and released to the world. So it's treating me really well. It's a really low side effect profile, and so it's keeping my tumor at bay. And I just went to physical therapy earlier today, hence the T-shirt. But I continue to try and improve every
Mm.
day. I mean, I didn't do it single-handedly, of course, but I made this documentary, just completed. It was a few years in the process, but I'm super proud of it and super excited for people to see it. I wish people could see it right now, but it's got to do the film
Right.
festival thing, blah blah blah. So I tell you what, for your
Well,
listeners, if they're
you'll
curious,
keep in touch with me and let me
oh
know when.
yeah, 100%.
Well,
Follow me on Instagram, Bald Bryan, with a Y, and I will for sure be posting updates. Oh, got into this film festival. It'll be playing here in February. In this town. So follow me and check it out.
Bryan Bishop is the author of the New York Times best-selling memoir, Shrinkage, Manhood, Marriage, and the Tumor That Tried to Kill Me. Before hosting the Bryan and Gina Show, the official podcast of Los Angeles Magazine, Bryan enjoyed a 16-year career as the on-air sidekick for the Adam Carolla Show, a syndicated morning radio show that evolved into the world's most downloaded podcast as certified by the Guinness Book of World Records. As a public speaker, he has spoken at companies such as SpaceX, Genentech, and Hall and Partners. Bryan is an advocate for cancer causes. He has worked with charitable organizations such as the V Foundation, the National Brain Tumor Society, Entertainment to Affect Change, Stupid Cancer, and the American Brain Tumor Association, where he delivered the keynote address at their national conference in 2023. He's done book readings and signing events across the country, from Manhattan to Hollywood. He's also appeared as a contestant on Comedy Central's Beat the Geeks and on syndicated game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? Millionaire, excuse me. He won both. Growth is the documentary. Look out for that. Shrinkage is the book. Shrinkage, Manhood, Marriage, and the Tumor That Tried to Kill Me by Bryan Bishop. Highly, highly recommended by me. If you pick up a book, it's a perfect book actually for the end of summer, the beginning of fall. Um, it's going to touch you, believe me. Get the free weekly Baldywood newsletter. Go to baldywood.com. That's BALDYWOOD.com. And on social media, you can follow Bryan at Bald Bryan. He's on Instagram and Twitter or X. Um, so that's it, Bryan. Thank you so much, man, for making my month, my week, my year, and coming on the show. I really, really admire you, my friend. And on
Thanks,
behalf of
man.
all your fans out there and myself, I just want to thank you for everything that you've given to our
Oh,
lives.
please, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. This is a lot of fun. Hopefully, you have me back, Phil, at some point.
You just say the word, you're back.
Thanks, man.
Shazam. Bryan, have a great rest of your day, my friend,
You
and
do
stay
the same,
well.
Jeremiah.
Stay well.